All right, welcome to another one of our release preview videos. We're here to talk about the spring of 2026 club wines that are coming out. These are all 2023 vintage. Some wines that you've had before, some kind of new things that we're doing with our winemaking. So Ciel du Cheval, Heart of the Hill, Optu Red, and Blackwood is what we're featuring with these releases. So this is the first time we're releasing our 2023 vintage of wines that we've made. Pretty light growing season. Some of the blocks that we got off of Red Mountain only got 50% of what we usually get in a typical vintage. So a few of these releases are pretty limited, kind of across the board, lower quantities than what we would typically make. But for the quality, lower yield vintages typically means more concentrated wines, I think more interesting wines. And we've done a few preview tastings now. We've had a chance to revisit these and really loving what we're seeing out of these, relatively young wines, but they've been showing really well, I think.
Yeah, coming off the 2022 vintage, which was, large quantities, it's almost like we're seeing a drop off a little bit in production, just given what the vines went through in 2022. And so that happens. We're dealing with Mother Nature. And so because of that, we're only really able to make 3 of the Ciel du Cheval wines because we did not get any Petit Verdot. So we won't have varietal Petit Verdot. And because of that, we are also not going to make a blend. So the 3 products in the lineup are the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Merlot, and then just a little bit of Cabernet Franc, which is limited in quantity. I think around 70 cases, 72 cases, something like that.
Only 3 barrels, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about Ciel du Cheval first. So one of the original plantings on Red Mountain, planted by the Holmes family. They're still, family owned, farmed by Richard and who's second generation, and Cade, their vineyard manager. Probably one of the most well-known growing sites on Red Mountain.
Yeah, started in 1975. I always say that if there was the classification like you have in France, that Ciel du Cheval would definitely be a premier Grand Cru vineyard. We've been making wines from there for a number of years now and really like the quality and consistency that we see from the vineyard from year to year. And we do get some of the grapes for these wines from that original mid-1970s, 75, 76 planting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for both the Merlot and the Cab. We're getting an original planting. It was our first ever single vineyard Cab that we made off of Red Mountain. So going back to 2006, our Ciel du Cheval Cab. Something we talk about is when we first started making Ciel du Cheval, it was just one of our Red Mountain wines, and it was easily the biggest, most concentrated wine in our lineup. And then over the years, as we've planted on Red Mountain ourselves, sourced from other growing sites on Red Mountain, it's kind of become on the more elegant side of our lineup. It's still Red Mountain, so it's still, one of the more powerful Cabernet growing sites in the state. But I think it has a little more old vine elegance to it across the board for all 3 of these wines. There's still definitely a fruit characteristics, especially in this 23 vintage, but you get a little more of those like tertiary other like baking spices, a little bit of earthiness, like dried herbs in all these wines. That just, I think, makes them really interesting.
Yeah, there's a certain level of elegance definitely with Ciel du Cheval that we don't see in some of our other wines. And the vintage, like you said, we're smaller clusters, smaller berries, more concentration, less quantity. I really think the 23 vintage is going to go down as one of the great vintages for us, and a vintage that, although the wines are pretty drinkable right now as we release them, they're going to age out pretty well too.
Ciel du Cheval, I think we watch how we extract these wines. We want to maintain the elegance, maintain that, essence of what we think a Ciel du Cheval wine should taste like, as hard as it is to describe. We only use French oak, new French oak for aging these wines. Each one of these spent about 22 months in a barrel. And then for the Cab Franc, we only used neutral or used barrels.
Yeah.
So really trying to, maintain those fruitier characteristics of the Cab Franc.
We almost feel like a new oak with the Cab Franc and just overwhelm. And we want that. We want the wines to be sort of fruity and fruit-driven type wines.
Yeah, so again, all three of these wines, definitely the Cab Franc, Merlot and Cab are going to get pretty close to selling out. They've been showing so well at our preview tastings. And, just another classic Red Mountain Ciel du Cheval vintage. If you like these wines in the past, this is just the same style, same quality.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
But commit to them, so you have them because they're limited in quantity.
So Ciel du Cheval is kind of its own little release for us. It's been that way for a while now. Usually 5 wines, only 3 this year. The other wines that are coming out are Optu Red. So Optu means optimum or the best in Latin. It's the one wine that we've made every year since 2000. It's the one wine I helped bottle back when I was, I think, 12 years old, putting capsules on the bottling truck. It was Meritage for 2 vintages.
Yeah, we went down that route a little bit and then just went back to a proprietary name.
Yeah, so we didn't have to pay the potential licensing fee for that. So I think in 2002 we switched to Optu, and we've used that name ever since. So we make the Optu Red and the Optu White, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But those are like 2 staple reserve style Bordeaux blends. Typically, it's always, Cabernet based at around 70%. I think there's one vintage where it was Merlot based. But this is no different. It's 60% Cab, 21% Merlot, 11% Cab Franc, 8% Petit Verdot. The difference in this vintage is it's the first time it's ever been sourced 100% out of our estate vineyard.
Yeah, and that's kind of an important note to make because a lot of the vineyard wasn't planted till 2015, the second phase of the vineyard. And we've kind of had to let the vines kind of come into their own. And because of that, we've held off on using it as our estate. We sourced Cabernet from other places on Red Mountain, but really starting with this vintage, we feel like it's kind of at the point where we can use estate fruit. So that's kind of an exciting next step in how the wines and our wines have evolved over the years.
Yeah, it's like that newer planting got to the point where it's like, we think this is just as good, if not better, than the fruit we're buying for Optu, so let's make the switch. And honestly, it's paid off amazingly well. Hopefully our automatic lights in the winery don't turn off on us. So it's still the same style as Optu Red. We purposely tried to make it that way. So if you've loved Optu in the past, it's going to fit that same flavor profile, that same amount of new oak that we use, the same blend breakdown. But it definitely is.
Oh no!
Oh no! It definitely is more estate in style, where you have like those tertiary characteristics, some like dried herbs, and that kind of like silky tannin structure like we see for our estate.
Yeah, I think it's just going to get better as we refine it and those vines mature even more. Not just the Cabernet, but the Merlot, the Petit Verdot, and the Cab Franc that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So should be even better.
Other wines in this release, Heart of the Hill. So Ciel du Cheval, owned and managed by one of the founding families of Red Mountain. Heart of the Hill is owned by the Williams family, the other founding family of Red Mountain. We've used Malbec from Heart of the Hill, I think since 2013. It's gone into our Red Mountain Malbec. When we first started using it, kind of learned what we liked about it, how to make it. I think in 2019 is when we made our first single varietal Heart of the Hill Malbec. And then Heart of the Hill Malbec, or Heart of the Hill, is a very famous Cabernet vineyard. Some of like the highest scoring wines in Washington have come out of Heart of the Hill. I think it really became famous when Bob Betts, maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, called it his favorite vineyard in Washington State.
Yeah, and they got some good scores. And
and he was like, one of these, legends and spokespeople for Washington wine.
Yeah.
So we get our Cabernet from that same little neighborhood as Betts, Upchurch, from some of the older plantings. Heart of the Hill Malbec is unique in that I think we're the only other winery outside of Kiona that makes 100% varietal Malbec from that vineyard. It's very heavily planted in Cab and Merlot. These wines for me, the structure always seems so polished. There's definitely lots of tannin in them, but it's not overly done, and they just have like a really lovely structure to them.
Yeah. It always amazes me, Red Mountain's a fairly small appellation, just over 4,000 acres, of which, 2,500 or so is planted. But we make Malbec and we make wines from a lot of different areas on the mountain, and they're different from each other. There's sort of a common thread, but at the same time, they're different. And I think you can see that in the Heart of the Hill wines, just from kind of that central location on the mountain. The Malbec actually the rows run east-west rather than north-south. So, and just I think the way that they farm it just makes it sort of unique and different, and it works, so it works for us.
Mm-hmm. Again, these blocks specifically, I think, are ones I remember getting half of what we usually get.
Right.
Just tiny little clusters, like pea-sized berries. Malbec berries are a little bit bigger than that, as they typically are, but we only made 200 cases of our Heart of the Hill Cab, 250 cases of the Malbec, and they're so delicious that these are definitely going to be ones that go really fast, and some of my favorite wines of the vintage so far. The one oddball in the new release is Blackwood Canyon Cab, and so that's off vintage. We started doing that a few years ago. It's just such a monster of a wine that it needs a little bit of extra time in barrel and bottle before we wanted to release it. So it's 22 vintage, aged in French oak and New American oak, 100% oak fermented as well. So this is, I think, Quintessence Cab, Estate Cab, Blackwood Cab are the biggest wines that we make in our lineup now.
This was a block that's just to the west of our estate vineyard, and I was curious as to what kind of quality we were going to get, and so we had the opportunity to buy it in 2014 to try it, and we really liked it, and so we've bought it ever since then. I believe the vineyard was planted in, I want to say 82 or 83, somewhere around there, but I call it old school Washington viticulture, where you didn't have smaller tractors, so you had the big wide rows, older canopy type style, but and clonate, but it works. It really is, really works for us, and it's great to see how the wines change, with the age that you get on some of the vines.
Yeah, it has that like older vine complexity, like structure and nuances to it, but then it still has that like classic Red Mountain power, fruit, tannin. We've, gone like 18 months, 24 months, 28 months on this wine for how long we age it in barrel. And now we're, going essentially 3 years in barrel. And it's, I think just every time we take it a little bit longer, it just, I think, makes the wine better, makes it more interesting, and the structure just keeps getting better.
So I think it's sort of a natural progression how our wines are evolving, as the vines age and we get to know what the wines are like more and more. I think we're just refining how we're making wine and trying to improve constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, tasting it's paid off 100%. Some other new releases, which are available in club allocations now that, these are fully customizable. The 22 Blackwood Canyon Malbec. So same owner, same grower as our Blackwood Cab. This is the same growing site that we've used for our Canyons Malbec in the past. Same like 45-degree slope of Malbec that is probably the hardest, growing site to manage on Red Mountain. It's in one of these little canyons at the base of the mountain, where like the floodwaters during the ancient Missoula floods kind of drained and created these really interesting steep slopes. The wind just rips through there. Honestly, a horrible place to grow anything besides wine grapes. And when this Malbec is good, I mean, it's a really hard place, really stressful place to grow, but when it's good, it's amazing. And pouring this wine for the first time these past few days, it's been one of the more popular releases that we've seen.
Yeah, definitely unique. And again, kind of going back to, Red Mountain's a small appellation, but all these little unique areas within the AVA make it interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something that we love showing off. And I think,
definitely.
We do just as good as anyone else out there. So it is our Canyons Malbec, just in a new name, but a name that you all recognize with Blackwood Canyon. We have a new vintage of Red Mountain Malbec as well, a 22, which is available. That is a blend of vineyards Malbec, so it's 100% varietal. Different vineyard sourcing, so all those different vineyard sites, different vineyard blocks are picked separately, fermented separately. It's kind of a showcase of what we're talking about, those different growing sites, different styles that we see. So we'll taste them all and essentially put a blend together of, some like fruitier style Malbec that we see on the hillside. Some Malbec that really has that like white pepper characteristic that we love, or a little bit of the like earthiness, like wet rocks aroma that Malbec can really get. And then, blending all those together to make, I think, a really interesting release.
Yeah, it's fun wine.
And definitely something if you want to drink sooner than later, because a lot of the other new club releases, they'll be able to age 10, 15 plus years if you really want to. I think the Red Mountain Malbec you can drink right away. And then the final release we'll talk about is our Optu White. When was the first vintage of Optu White?
It was off Red Mountain, so I think we made it actually off of Stillwater Creek. It had to be early 2000s.
Yeah, maybe like 2004, 2005. Mm-hmm. So it's always done in a classic Bordeaux Blanc style. So this vintage is 66% Sauv Blanc, 34% Semillon. If you're a fan of white Bordeaux, if you've ever bought it and tasted it, and you're looking at the bottle and it says a bunch of words in French, and then there's like a picture of a castle and you don't know what's in it. It's typically this style blend, mostly Sauv Blanc, rounded out with Semillon.
I really like it. I hadn't tasted it in a while and had a chance since it's preview tasting weekend, and it just has kind of what I call like a delicious factor. It's just pleasant, great wine.
Yeah. I know, it surprises me every time I drink it. It's like, of course it tastes good. It's all barrel fermented, which is, a little unique. There's a lot of Washington Sauv Blanc that is stainless steel, aged and fermented. So we hand pick it, we press it, we cold settle it for 48 hours. And then that unfermented juice goes into barrel, and then we inoculate in the barrel. So it ferments and then ages in barrel from anywhere to 8 to 10 months. I think this one spent almost 11 months in barrel. We use a touch of New French oak, but really what we're using the oak for is the structure of the wine. We don't want like overly aggressive oak aromas or flavors.
It can really tell in the mouthfeel, the viscosity, a little bit of French oak, but again, trying to accentuate the fruitiness.
So it just creates this like really pleasant, rich texture to it that goes well with the, fruitier characteristics that we get off of Red Mountain grown Bordeaux varietals. And then it just has this lovely, mouth-watering fresh acidity to it. It's mostly Arts Vineyard, which is something that we've been moving towards recently, getting more fruit from them. Has a little bit of quintessence, which is unique, that hasn't always gone into our Optu White. But the bulk of this is coming from Arts Vineyard, which is another one of the Williams Kiona properties. They took it over 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a early 80s planting, kind of planted alongside Clipson Vineyard. And I think they've really, brought new life into this vineyard. And it's, it was amazing. And then the Williams family took it over. And it's like each year, it's like just keeps getting better. And it's made this Optu White into one of my favorite white wines that we've ever made.
Yeah.
So I'd say in general, 2023 vintage, if I had to compare it to another one from recent memory, 2019 is kind of what we're seeing. Really concentrated wines. Warm summer growing season, so pretty fruit forward. Cool final ripening window, so you can age these a long time if you want. But really interesting, fun wines to drink on the younger side or age if you want to. But really proud of them and can't wait for you guys to try them.
Yeah, really exciting to open these up and taste them and look forward to having you taste them as well.
Yeah. Cheers.